Let's talk to Theo Usherwood, political commentator. Just before that, a bit of breaking news. Volodymyr Zelensky is in Berlin today, where he's going to have talks with European leaders and Donald Trump, apparently, virtually, about Ukraine. Donald Trump, of course, heading to Alaska for his meeting with Vladimir Putin on Friday. Theo's here, though. Theo, very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you, mate.
I mean, as I think back to just 1 week ago, before we went breaking through the 50,000 migrant barrier, I'm pretty sure I remember Keir Starmer saying, you know, anyone that comes here illegally will be detained and will be returned. As far as I know, that hasn't happened.
There's been no detail on it. Of course, as you rightly pointed out in your Sun column of a week ago, there was no detail of exactly how this was going to happen, just some vague promises. And the problem continues to get worse. We've now surpassed the 50,000 mark of the number of migrants that have crossed the English Channel since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister at the beginning of July last year. Very shortly, we will have reached the point at which more migrants will have crossed the English Channel during Keir Starmer's 13 months in government compared to the 19 months that Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister. That's how bad the problem has got. In the 6 months...
That's amazing.
For the first half of the year, the number of crossings is up 48% on the same half of 2024. So that's how bad the problem is getting now. And it's not... And Jackie Smith, the former cabinet minister under Tony Blair, former Home Secretary, who's now an education minister and now a peer, making the argument, well, it's the fault of the last lot. Actually, the problem has got worse since Keir Starmer.
Quite substantially worse.
Quite substantially worse, 50% worse since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. And he took the decision that the Rwanda scheme needed to be scrapped rather than pressing ahead and trying to make the Rwanda scheme work. And that's on Keir Starmer. That was his second day in office, in his first proper press conference as Prime Minister in number 10 Downing Street. He immediately scrapped the Rwanda scheme. And we saw the effects. The problem, you know, it didn't solve the problem, but the numbers did go down with that scheme from 46,000 down to 29,000 a year. So the numbers were going in the right direction. But now we're facing the prospect of actually the number of crossings surpassing 50,000, maybe getting as high as 60 or 70,000 in a calendar year by this December.
Yeah, no question about it, because there's already, I would say, up to 51,000, because we broke through the barrier with 400 coming, I think, on Sunday. It then turned out there was about another 500 that came on Monday, so practically 1,000 people in just 2 days, which will take it well up to very nearly 51,000 if memory serves. And the problem is that, as I say, they keep saying things which turn out not to be true. I mean, we've got Yvette Cooper from last week. Let me play you this, right? She said this on Friday, that she was going to bring us regular updates on what was going on. Check it out.
We'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started and the first migrants who arrived on the small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
Well, they won't provide details so that criminal gangs can't use and exploit them, but they won't provide details at all, because it turns out that since Friday, which is now, what, good 4 or 5 days ago, we've heard nothing. I've looked at Yvette Cooper's Twitter. The last tweet that she put out was on the 7th of March. It's now, sorry, the 7th of August. It's now the 13th of August.
We do have actually proper transparency. We have proper transparency from the migrants who are crossing the channel. A superb exclusive on the front page of the Sun about what, you know, they're posting on TikTok, and that's the message that's going to other migrants right across Europe and as far afield, no doubt, as places like Afghanistan, North Africa. Come to this country. Look what you can get. That looks like a 4-star, distinctly like a 4 or 5-star hotel to me, and that's the pull factor. And I read the quote from Nigel Farage to accompany that exclusive, what Nigel, the leader of Reform UK, said. And he made the point, of course, that this is just exacerbating the problem that people want to come to this country. You've now got this perverse situation where Nigel Farage is agreeing with Emmanuel Macron, the French president, who's saying that actually you've got to deal with the pull factors about why people want to come to Britain, because you can get a job, apparently you can now get, I've seen a story today that you're covering on Talk, Mike, that you can get perks such as days out on a dinghying included. You know, there is lots of support. There's lots of support available, freebies, even if you only get £8 a day. The hotel bill is now at £6 million a day. And that is exacerbating the problem because people want to come to this country. And that's why I think what's going to happen over the next few weeks and months going into the autumn is you've already had Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, come out and say that we need to look at potentially camps where people can be housed, which are not 4-star hotels. We've then got to we're going to expect a policy announcement from Mr. Farage, which is going to be very similar. The problem that Keir Starmer has got is that if he goes down that route, he's going to face a major revolt from his own Labour backbenchers, who will say, you can't do this, it's against the human rights of these migrants. We can see, he could even put his position as Prime Minister in jeopardy, given the scale of the feeling. And you'll also see, you mentioned, a meeting of, leaders talking about the Ukraine. It will put in jeopardy his position on the international stage because he likes being a statesman. He likes travelling around the world in this coalition of the willing. He likes the perks of coming out. But this situation at the moment suits the French, it suits the Germans, because the migrants are leaving Europe and coming to Britain. If he was to actually create the deterrent where they stay on mainland Europe because they're scared of being put in a camp or being deported, the Prime Minister were to resurrect eventually something similar to the Rwanda scheme, they would stay in Europe, and that would exacerbate the problem. And he would no longer be the friend of Friedrich Merz. He would no longer be the friend of Ursula von der Leyen or of Emmanuel Macron, because he would be exacerbating the problem in Europe. And that's the catch-22 that the Prime Minister finds himself in, is that actually to do the right thing by the people of Epping, by the people of Diss in Norfolk, and where these hotels are, to try and actually tackle the problem, he's going to end up upsetting Labour MPs and upsetting his allies in the European Union. And you just have to think back to when the last government looked at the Bibi Stockholm, the boat where it was going to be turned.
Oh, that was horrendous, wasn't it? I mean, people.
And they got an outbreak of Legionnaires
like this. Yeah,
and that was it. The whole thing had to close down. Can't do it.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody put Legionnaires' disease in there to make it worse than it actually was. I mean, because you've got the problem with Keir Starmer is that he can't upset his friends in Europe, because at the end of the day, in his heart of hearts, he doesn't want to kick the migrants out. Some of his rhetoric lately is the kind of thing that he would have attacked massively if it had been said by a Tory as recently as 2 years ago, right? But have a look back at last week. This is what he said would happen to migrants if they came to this country illegally.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks, and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain, and the jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working, which is on a completely unprecedented scale.
Yeah, it's on such an unprecedented scale that a bloke who's got a TikTok account came on Saturday and was in a hotel by Sunday afternoon. So that, I'm afraid, once again, was a complete lie from Keir Starmer. He did not actually set up a system whereby people would be prevented from entering the country. He did not set up a system by which people were detained and then returned. He did not set up a system which made it impossible for people to come here and work illegally. He did none of those things. So therefore, that makes him a liar on about 5 counts, doesn't it?
Look, he's relying on creating, Keir Starmer wants to create a sense of jeopardy, right? He wants to create, if you're a migrant and you're on the north coast of France, and I'm just astounded when I look at those pictures that you've been playing out, how organised it is.
Yeah,
This is a scam.
No, we've described it before, because the Daily Mail went over and many other journalists have gone over as well. And if you stand on the beaches of northern France on a morning of any weekday or any weekend, you'd basically see dinghy rush hour. They bring them out one after the other, and people are waiting on the beach, as you can see them there, waiting in the shallows, and they clamber on. The sort of survival of the fittest, I guess, is people actually get on them and then they get brought over here. But there's one after another. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a whole selection of dinghies.
It's frightening. It's frightening how organised it is.
Yeah.
And what Keir Starmer wants to do is he wants to create an element of jeopardy in the minds of those who are thinking about crossing, that actually if they were to cross the English Channel, then they would be deported. But when you're talking about only deporting 50 a week, these people are prepared quite happily to take the chance. There's very little prospect of them being deported in a speedy way, and so they're quite happy to believe the gangmasters who are operating this racket. They're quite happy to believe the TikTokers who are posting videos of 4-star hotels, and we've seen other videos I know that have been obtained by Talk. Because why would you believe Keir Starmer when you can see the evidence for yourself on social media with your phone of how good life can be in Britain? And there's a very small chance from their perspective that actually they'll find themselves removed back to Europe. And that's the problem, is that Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, for this scheme to be successful, they would need to get to the point at which 8 in 10 migrants are deported, so that they actually think, right, there's a chance, that there's a realistic, a very good chance I'm going to be deported. But we know we covered it last week, the loopholes that now exist. There's the European Convention on Human Rights. You could claim that you have there's a realistic chance of being tortured. You could claim that you have a right to a family life. You could have thrown your passport or your mobile phone over the side, which would have any proof of your age, and you could claim that you're under 18, and there'd be no way for the authorities to prove otherwise, and therefore you wouldn't be eligible for this scheme. And it's fine if you're only trying to deport 50 a week, but actually what the government wants to do is to get to a situation where you could deport 200 or 300 a week. And it's not going to work.
The point is they said they started last week and they haven't deported anyone. So
no, and they haven't made an announcement.
So they haven't made an announcement. They don't look as if they're going to deport anybody this week. We're already at Wednesday, right? Pretty soon it's going to be Thursday. It's going to be a week after they announced all this stuff was happening, and nothing's changed. And in fact, quite the reverse. These guys are now taunting us, coming here, filming it, putting it out on TikTok, watched by 1 million people. There's probably going to be 1 million of them all now come.
Yeah, and they'll all see the evidence, and the gangmasters, if they're trying to persuade anybody, who might be scratching their head and thinking, I don't really want to come to Britain, and say, well, have a look at this video of these guys in this 4-star hotel, and look how good life can be, and you can get a job for a delivery company, and you can work, and there's a very small chance that you might be caught, and if you are caught, you're not going to go to prison. You're just going to be released on bail and told not to do it again, and you might lose £8 a week, £8 a week in £50 a week in benefits. So, what's in it for not taking the chance and not coming to this country? But Keir Starmer doesn't have the political capital. It's worth just acknowledging the blocker on the other side are his own MPs. He doesn't have the political capital to get this over the line and to deal with the problem in an effective way by creating some sort of encampment like's being suggested by the Tories, or like is going to be suggested by Reform UK, because his Labour MPs will just revolt against that idea, and we'll see the challenges that go through the courts. And that's fundamentally...
Every one of those Labour MPs, by the way, should answer to their constituents who have got migrants in their constituency living in hotels, messing up the neighbourhood, and if they want to vote, in order to continue to do that, to continue to put these people into their constituencies, I think they should put their hands up and admit to it and tell the people that they represent, we're right and you're wrong. That's what they should do if they had any cojones whatsoever.
There will be some Labour MPs who are on very slim majorities in the north of England in those red wall constituencies who will support the Prime Minister. But you need to think about those MPs in London, in Birmingham, in Manchester, in built-up areas, in metropolitan districts, and particularly middle-class Labour, where they have a middle-class Labour voting constituency. They will be the ones who will revolt against any plan, if Keir Starmer finally buckles and actually introduces the changes that need to be made to stop this happening. And that is why he won't be able to get it over the line.
What an absolute shambles. Great to talk to you, Theo. Thank you very much indeed. Theo Usherwood there, talking of the business of the economy.